At the wedding of Theresa Caputo's brother, a medium from Long Island, there was an unexpected moment. At the ceremony, Theresa was spotted with her ex-husband, Larry Caputo. Naturally, both fans and the guests in attendance have questions. Will they put their family conflict behind them and get back together? Theresa departed the gathering silently, without responding to questions from reporters about this. Many people think that this silence marks a fresh beginning, even though she didn't say anything immediately. Therefore, the only thing on everyone's mind right now is whether Theresa and Larry will actually reconcile. At last, Theresa Caputo's brother was married in a ballroom filled with golden lights. Everything changed the moment Theresa and her ex-husband Larry Caputo entered the room side by side. The wedding was intended to be about family, love, and fresh starts. Some guests even took out their phones to record the moment as they muttered beneath champagne glasses. Theresa and Larry hadn't been spotted together in a situation like this for years. Their divorce had been traumatic, well reported, and the subject of much conjecture. However, throughout the ceremony, they were seated only a few rows apart and exchanged brief, but noticeable glances. Theresa appeared composed yet oddly shy in her sparkling outfit and big blonde hair. Larry stayed close to her but never ventured too far away, looking sharper than ever in a black suit. They seemed to be circling one another, unable to completely separate. Tension increased at the reception. Larry was seen close to the dance floor when the music began, and Theresa entered shortly after. When Larry extended his hand, the audience froze, and for a moment, everyone assumed she would say no. Rather, she softly put her hand in his. Then, with a peculiar familiarity that spoke of years of history and shared memories, the two started dancing, slowly and awkwardly at first. The phones flashed. The guests applauded. Suddenly, the entire ceremony was about Theresa and Larry instead of the bride and groom. As the couple went out together for some air, reporters who had already gathered outside for celebrity coverage quickly asked the crucial question, "Theresa, are you and Larry back together?" But rather than responding, Theresa smiled slightly, gave Larry a quick squeeze on the hand, and turned to go without a word. Larry followed her back inside after being outside for a while with an unclear countenance. Her words were not as loud as her quiet. Later, fans posted a ton of theories on social media. Something is undoubtedly happening because she didn't dispute it. You can't fake that kind of chemistry the way they danced. I believe their reunion began with this wedding. At the end of the evening, the wedding was trending on the internet, not because of the married couple, but because of the possibility of a romance that everyone had assumed was over-resuming. Theresa's silence was interpreted by some as a refusal to contribute to the media frenzy. Some thought that was her version of yes, but not yet. One thing was certain, Theresa and Larry's journey was far from over, even though no one really understood what was happening behind those reserved smiles and unsaid words. The world was only able to discuss whether the Long Island medium and her ex-husband were prepared to start a new chapter together after the wedding was over and the bride and groom left for their honeymoon. But Theresa Caputo was getting ready for one of her group readings on a calm, cold Long Island afternoon. Candlelight illuminated the modest community center, which had chairs set in a circle and the aroma of fresh coffee wafting in from the corridor. Individuals had assembled, each bearing their own sorrows and secretly wishing for a final reunion with their loved ones. A mother in her early 50s named Linda was seated among the bunch. Her eyes were red and swollen from so many sobbing nights, and she was dressed simply in a black jumper. Her daughter, Emily, had passed away from a heroin overdose just 6 months prior. She still felt the weight of the anguish, which was still raw and intolerable. Though she wasn't sure whether she really believed in mediums, Linda had been debating going to this event for weeks. Her heart ached for some indication that Emily was at peace. The oppressive hush was broken by Theresa's Long Island accent as she entered the room with her usual friendliness. She welcomed everyone and explained her method, saying that while not all of her messages would immediately make sense, spirit will lead her. People nodded while holding Kleenex. Some were already shaking with excitement. Theresa started to move around the room, then she abruptly halted close to Linda. Her hand automatically went to her chest as her expression softened. "They're dragging me over here," Theresa murmured softly. "I sense the spirit of a young woman coming forward. She is demonstrating to me how abruptly and cruelly her life ended. Does anyone here understand that?" Linda lifted her hand halfway, and it trembled. She muttered, "My daughter." Emily was her name. She took too much. The room became silent. Theresa nodded, compassion shining in her eyes. "Your daughter is coming forward and saying, 'Mom, I'm so sorry.' She's giving me the impression that she didn't intend for this to occur. In addition to presenting me the pills, she gives me the impression that she believed she could manage it and that it wasn't meant to be the end. She wants you to understand that you are not to blame for this." Tears were streaming down Linda's face. I continued to blame myself. I reasoned that perhaps I could have spared her if I had been more severe or attentive. Theresa approached and spoke softly to reassure her. "Mom, you couldn't have stopped me," Emily adds. "She's showing me a locket. Did you lately purchase a necklace with her picture? Please stop carrying my mistakes on your shoulders." Linda grasped her chest and gasped. She produced a silver chain with a small locket that contained Emily's picture from beneath her jumper. "I wear it every day," she sobbed as she spoke. Theresa clarified, "That's her way of telling you she's with you every single day. She senses it when you touch that locket. She tells me that she kisses you goodnight, and that, while you're in bed alone, you occasionally sense a warmth that is her hugging you from the other side." Linda's sobs turned into something lighter, almost a release, but she still shook her head in shock. Theresa stopped and shut her eyes. "Emily is playing music for me. Did she enjoy singing or listening to music in her room?" Linda gave a brief nod. "She used to sing constantly. Her voice could be heard everywhere in her home." "Then be aware of this," Theresa grinned. "It's her way of saying, 'Hello, Mum,' whenever you hear a song that makes you think of her. She wants you to smile instead of sobbing every time since she is no longer in pain. I'm still here. She wants you to remember more than just how she passed away. She wants you to remember her laughter." Everyone in the room was crying by this point. The rawness of the interaction affected strangers, who wiped their eyes. With her trembling hands finally steadying, Linda sat up straighter in her chair and breathed a little easier. Theresa touched Linda's arm tenderly. "Additionally, Emily is showing me sunflowers. Are those significant to you?" Linda's jaw fell agape. She painted sunflowers in the past. She claimed that they brought her joy. "One of her paintings is still hanging on the wall of my kitchen." Theresa whispered, "That's her gift to you. See the happiness she wished to convey to you instead of despair when you gaze at those sunflowers. Even now, that's how she makes your days happier." Linda nodded, a brittle smile mingled with tears. She felt that her kid wasn't lost, but rather closer in a new way for the first time in months. Theresa glanced around the room as the lesson came to a conclusion. Tonight was about love, not just loss. Love is eternal. Additionally, Linda, your daughter wants me to let you know that I'm all right, Mum. I also need you to be all right. Thanks, Emily, Linda murmured into the silent room. Thank you. Although the evening ended with modest chatter and embraces, Linda left in a different state than when she arrived. Even if only little, the crushing weight on her chest had been relieved. For the first time in a long time, she looked up at the sky and prayed in a low voice, thankful that her daughter had found a way to speak again through Theresa. Linda realized she could at last start to recover at that very time. But quiet expectancy pervaded the studio. To participate in this unique Long Island medium filming with Theresa Caputo, people had come from all across the nation. They all had one thing in common. They yearned for a word from a departed loved one. Some arrived with sorrowful hearts, while others arrived with cautious hope. A young woman named Caroline was sitting in the crowd, holding a silver locket that had previously belonged to her late mother. She hadn't disclosed her attendance to any members of her family. Caroline wasn't even certain that she believed in mediums. However, she had experienced an inexplicable emptiness ever since her mother's unexpected death 2 years earlier. She would contact her mother, who had been her best friend, about anything, including her work, relationships, and even what to do for supper. The resulting hush was intolerable. When Theresa walked in, the room was immediately filled with her characteristic huge blonde hair and lively energy. She gave the throng a cordial greeting, but her attitude quickly changed. As though she were listening to someone whispering to her alone, she cocked her head slightly. Theresa started looking around the room and said, "A mother figure is stepping forward. She tells me that she died suddenly. And oh my God, she's showing me something about a silver locket. I keep hearing her say, 'Tell her I'm okay. Tell her I'm okay.'" Caroline's eyes grew wide and began to well up with tears. She gripped the locket more tightly. Even the producers were unaware that she had brought it. She caught Theresa's eye. "Can you defend me, sweetheart? Your mother is present." Caroline sprang up, her legs trembling. "Yes," she said, "that's me." Theresa gave a soft smile. "She's trying to tell you to quit blaming yourself for missing her last moments. You couldn't have changed what happened," she says. "She tells me that her heart failed quickly, but she was unharmed. Do you get that?" Caroline covered her mouth and nodded. It was accurate. Her mother was alone at home when she passed away following an unexpected heart attack. Since then, Caroline had felt guilty and wished she had made a call or paid a visit earlier in the day. Theresa stopped, though, her eyes narrowing as though she was concentrating on something very particular. "She's demonstrating something to me that I doubt anyone else would be aware of. Like in a nightstand, she keeps pointing to a tiny drawer. Does it make sense?" She's giggling a little and instructing me to say the blue ribbon. People turned to stare at Caroline when she let out a loud gasp. "Indeed. God forbid. In her bedside drawer, my mother used to store all of her small treasures. I had a blue ribbon from my third-grade school spelling bee victory. It was always one of her favorite things about me," she added. "Not even my father was aware that she kept it." Theresa's speech became softer, her tone more kind. "That's her method of demonstrating, sweetheart, that she is indeed present and that it is indeed her. You're stronger than you realize," she tells me. She claims that she is always with you whenever you sense a pull at your heart or when you smell her favorite scent. For the first time in many years, Caroline's tears weren't just ones of sorrow. They were tears of recognition, affection, and relief. She had the impression that her mother had just stretched across the veil and embraced her. Theresa went on, "Your mother is mentioning the flowers as well. Does it make sense when she says, 'Stop buying me roses, I like daisies best'?" Caroline chuckled despite her tears. "Indeed. Every time I visit her grave, I bring roses. Her favorite, though, was always daisies. I never considered that." Theresa nodded. "That's her. She's telling you to bring daisies the next time. You'll know she's smiling right there with you if you do that." The only sound in the room was that of sniffles. The unadulterated strength of the connection was felt even by the audience, who were not familiar with Caroline's experience. Theresa put her hand on her chest before continuing. "Tell your girl that I'm proud of her every day, not only for what she does but for who she is. That's all your mom wants me to say to you. Inform her that I will always be her biggest admirer." Resuming her seat, Caroline felt lighter than she had in years despite her shivering. She could feel the warmth of her mother's touch on the silver locket in her hand. She was aware that she had here for a purpose. With the unwavering confidence that her mother was still with her, still watching, still loving her, she left with the serenity she had been seeking. That particular detail with the blue ribbon was a game-changer for Caroline. It was the evidence she had never anticipated receiving. The fact that the smallest things can occasionally mend the deepest scars served as yet another reminder to everyone in attendance of why Theresa's gift had such a profound impact on so many lives. But the studio was humming with excitement on this cool Long Island autumn afternoon. The Long Island medium, Theresa Caputo, was getting ready for one of her readings in the group. A table with tissues and water bottles stood in the corner. The chairs were arranged in a circle, and the room smelled faintly of candles. As always before Theresa started channeling spirit, there was a mix of excitement and trepidation in the air. A woman named Angela was among those who were silently waiting. She was a woman in her late 40s, modestly clothed in dark trousers and a gray sweater, her hands gripping a tissue anxiously before any tears had formed. In just 3 years, Angela had lost both of her parents, her mother to cancer soon after, and her father to an unexpected heart attack. She had borne a silent, unwavering anguish ever since. Angela was stuck, rehearsing regrets over and over again. The last phone call she never made, the arguments she wished she could take back, the love words she didn't express enough. Her siblings had moved on in their own ways. The tension was relieved by Theresa's familiar presence when she entered the room. She instantly dominated the room with her large hair, long nails, and self-assured gait. "Good afternoon, everyone," she remarked with a kind grin. "I appreciate everyone's presence today. Since this morning, Spirit has been really active with me, so I know that some strong messages will be sent." She stopped and looked around the gathering. Theresa put a palm on her chest as if the energy itself were a burden and said, "I'm being pulled to someone here who lost both parents. It's rare for me to have a mother and father together because they don't always appear at the same time. Who among us lost both parents?" Angela felt her heart begin to rush. Her initial reaction was to remain silent, so as not to attract attention. However, she experienced an unseen prod, a quick surge of warmth. She held up her hand, her voice trembling. "I am that. My parents both died." Theresa instantly turned to face her. "Your parents have been anticipating this day, honey. Since this morning, they have been by my side. They gave me the impression that today was all about you." The tears filled Angela's eyes. Are they all right?" she muttered. Theresa gave a soft smile. "They're doing just fine. First to come forward is your dad, who tells me he left abruptly. No warning, no farewells. I can tell it was his heart since he keeps pointing to his chest. Is that logical?" Angela nodded, gasping. Indeed. A heart attack struck him. It went by so quickly. Theresa went on, "And your mom comes in right behind him. She gives me the impression that she struggled with something over time. I knew this was cancer because of the weight I feel in my lungs and chest. She tells me that even if you didn't think you were doing enough, you were there for her. My Angela never left my side," she adds. "Does that seem correct?" Angela cried softly, while covering her mouth. "Yes, I did remain with her. I always felt like I had let her down, even though I tried." Theresa leant forward and spoke in a forceful, yet gentle tone. "Spirit is quite evident. Your mother claims that you did not let her down in any way. She claims that when she needed it most, you provided her love, dignity, and strength. She asks you to let go of your guilt since she doesn't recall it. She recalls the way you made sure she never felt alone, the laughter you made her laugh while she was in pain, and your hand in hers." With tears in her eyes, Angela shook her head. "I only wish I had expressed my affection for them more. Sometimes I held back." Theresa laughed and remarked, "Your dad interrupts me now, as if she were reprimanding a relative that only she could hear." "Angela, stop it," he says. We were aware. He gives me the impression that he wasn't a talkative man, but he claims that his love was always evident, even in the smallest details. Do you recall how I would fix your car?" he asks. "How would I go about checking your doors at night? I was expressing my love for you in that way." Partly laughing, partly sad, Angela cried out, "Oh my God, he is that." At night, he always checked the locks. Theresa went on, "And your mom just showed me a locket. She claims that you possess something of hers, perhaps a sentimental item of jewelry?" Instinctively, Angela's hands went for the tiny pendant that hung around her neck. Since the funeral, she had worn her mother's necklace every day. "Yes," she said in a whisper. "She owned this. She claims that she is always with you while you hold it. It's her presence and vitality, not just a recollection. Spirit is telling me that your mother is there, wiping away your tears as you cry while holding that locket." With the exception of Angela's cries, the room was suddenly entirely quiet. The rawness of the situation impacted even the other guests, who were crying and holding tissues. Theresa's voice grew softer. "Now, both of your parents come forward. They tell me they are at peace while holding hands. They say, "We are united, and we are watching over our girl." Your mother says she's pleased of the lady you've become, despite the fact that you don't give yourself enough credit, and your father says he's happy of the way you lead the family. Angela, they want you to move on from the past. Because they will continue to live through you. They want you to live, smile, and love. Angela nodded while sobbing, but there was a noticeable relief, as if a burden had been removed. She experienced a glimmer of solace for the first time in years, a feeling that her parents were actually present rather than merely absent. Theresa extended her arm and caressed Angela's hand tenderly. The gift of tranquility was just given to you by your parents, honey. Don't waste it. Know that they are there, grinning with you whenever you laugh or feel love. The event itself, a link between this world and the next that healed a shattered heart, caused the crowd to erupt in cheers, not for Theresa. That day, Angela, not the same woman who had entered, left the reading. She felt like she could breathe again for the first time since losing her parents. The locket around her neck began to feel like a bridge, a heartbeat, and a constant presence rather than only a reminder of loss. And she said in a quiet voice, "Thank you, Mum," as she went out into the cool fall air. "I'm grateful, Dad. I cherish you." And they whispered back, somewhere beyond the barrier. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Mina, and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.